Tonight's episode of the 31st Lap Podcast is brought to you by DirtTrackDigest.com. If it's on dirt, it's on Dirt Track Digest.
This is the 31st Lap Podcast, recorded live in the studios of FingerLakes1.com in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now, your hosts, Chris Marquardt.
Good afternoon and welcome to episode number 205 of the 31st Lap. We're going to be catching up with Chuck Winslow here in a little while. There's his name tile. You'll be seeing that a little bit later on when we talk to him. We're going to be getting with him maybe 5-10 minutes or so because he's got to grab his son from the airport. We're going to be getting an interview with him a little bit later on. On the topic of that, we're going to be recapping some of the action from Outlaw Speedway. But first, let's just do a quick rundown on what we saw through the past weekend and what we've got to worry about in a little bit at Spencer Speedway. Mike Hyman won the four-cylinder feature of Matty Verts. Ashley Schoonmaker got a win in the Super Sixes over Barrett Shank, and Eddie Hawkins broke a 2-year winless streak. Good for him. And with a modified win over Kevin Timmerman and Mike Lady, the New York Superstock racers were there. They were getting practice laps in for the Dave London 50, which is coming up on the 19th of August. Pat Ward won his 13th career feature at Brewerton. He dominated that one. Jimmy Phelps was behind him. Tom Sears Jr., Matt Hulsizer, Ryan Phelps were in the top 5 at Fulton this Saturday. Tom Sears was in victory lane while Pat Ward chased him down from second. Chris Heil, Ryan Phelps, Tim Sears were in the top 5. Oswego, they took the weekend off for Harborfest. Ontario County Fairgrounds in Canandaigua were closed for the Ontario County Fair. Friend of the show, Jamie Brown won the compact championship at the Demolition Derby over there at the Ontario County Fair. We talked to him on Monday on the crash course. Utica Dome Speedway, rain washed out the Coal Cup. That's been moved to the 11th of September. Touring news, I think we talked about this one this week, if I'm not mistaken. Frank Cozy won his first Super Dirt Car Series feature since winning the 200 lapper. I believe that was back in 2008 when he won that. He won that at Drummond last week. Larry White, Mike Mahaney, Stu Friesen, and Steve Bernier were behind him. Matt Shepard won at Granby. Stu Friesen was next with Jimmy Phelps, Brett Hearn, and David Hebert in the top 5. The tour went to Merrittville Monday, where Matt Shepard won again. He looked real good over there at Merrittville, just running. He's basically, the headline read, he was in his own league. He had a pretty decent run through the course of the night. Chad Brockman was next, Mike Bowman, Stu Friesen, Pete McNell, and Tim Fuller coming through with front showings. Chris Steele, Eric Rudolph, Gary Lindbergh, and Brett Hearn were filling your top 10. The next night, they moved on to Ransomville Speedway, where, if you can guess, Stu Friesen came up with a win again. So these two just trading wins back and forth, back and forth. Stu Friesen running to the front in that one. Matt Shepard was right behind him. Peter Britton, Chad Brockman, and Brett Hearn in the top 5. Danny Johnson, Tim Fuller, Billy Decker, Vic Coffey, Tommy Flanagan filling out the top 10 over at Weedsport. They're the next event on the schedule 5 days from right now on August the 9th. Weedsport Speedway is going to host them. Then we we got most of August off. Then we swing to Lebanon Valley on the 1st of September, and we're back at Weedsport on the 5th of September. And then on the 9th of September, we're at the RPM Speedway up in Canada with the Super Dirt Car Series. So, here we go. There he is. All right. Thanks, Steven. Appreciate that note. Getting back to Outlaw Speedway. I got to find where we were supposed to be. There it is. Okay. What is this? Now I'm all confused. Steven, you got me all confused on this. I thought I was in pretty good shape, and now I'm completely upside down. All right. Let's go with this right here. On the 29th, Tyler Seary won his 3rd feature of the year over Derek Pozziotto and Danny Johnson. Alan Johnson, Steve Payne ran in the top 5. AJ Lloyd won the Crate Sportsman feature over Brent Ayers and Tom Collins. Jason Knowles and the Crate Lates. He won over Brian Knowles. It was his 3rd win of the year. Chuck Winslow, who we're going to talk to, that was his 6th Street Stock feature over Jared Hill and Nate Daggett. It's been such a tough division to come up with a win with. They've been moving them back and forth. A couple of the top cars, they just rotating door on victory lane. Cody Baker couldn't shuffle J.J. Creedler out of the win as he went on to his 4th four-cylinder feature, and Jordan Bacon won his 5th youth main. Turning around with another quick night of action at the Midsummer Meltdown Danny Johnson, he rallied to come up with a feature win in the modified division. Alan Johnson, Steve Payne ran in the top three. Corey Costa, Tyler Seary, Brady Fultz, David Rudiman, that's the David Rudiman, followed across the line. Donnie Lawson and Brian Swarthout also in action in the Super Gen CRSA 305 Sprint Tour. Daryl Ruggles picked up the win over Kyle Smith and Eddie Strada. Thomas Radevoy, Dana Wagner, Dalton Herrick, Brett Jaycox also in competition. Total of 13 cars showed up for that one, not too bad. Dale Welty picked up the Super Gen Products Grit Series Racing feature for the Sportsman division. There was 20 cars registered for action there. Welty won over Carl Comfort and Tom Collins. Casey Pavlik, Donnie Lawson, AJ Lloyd, Buzzy Rudiman, Stacy Jackson, Tim Guild, and Josh Kesey. All some of your front finishers there. In the Friday night's All-Star Street Stocks, the Fight Night program, Jared Hill came away with a win in that one. Quinn Sutherland, Bob Buono, Jason Smart, John Carpenter, TJ Frost also in the top couple. And in the four-cylinders, J.J. Cradler winning again in the four-cylinder division over there at Outlaw. So, that being said, Outlaw, as we mentioned, was a pretty tight battle with Chuck Winslow and his fellow street stock campaigners in the street stock division. He's picked up 6 wins so far. We're going to catch up with him here momentarily, if my phone will cooperate, because I got to find his phone number. He is, like I said, he's at the airport, so hopefully he'll be able to grab this phone line, and we'll be in good shape here right quickly. The joys of doing this thing live. 6 wins now, 4-point series races and 2 fight night victories for Chuck Winslow. Not too bad on the season for him, as we wait to hear anxiously from Chuck Winslow. Hey, Chuck, it's Chris. Can I put you in? It's Chris. Can I put you in? Chuck? Hey, Chuck, can you hear me? Have we got you, Chuck? Uh-oh, maybe we don't have Chuck. Try this one more time. I don't know if maybe something happened to the phone. Try this once more. I heard him say hello, and then after that, everything got quiet.
Hello.
Hey, Chuck?
Yes.
Hey, it's Chris. Can I put you in?
How are you?
All right, great. All right, there's Chuck. Can you hear us okay, Chuck? You there, Chuck?
Yeah, I can barely hear you.
Let me see if I can get you a little bit better set up here. There we go. How's that? Can you hear us a little better now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, great. Well, man, I appreciate you taking time out of the schedule. I understand you were tied up at the airport tonight picking up your son. Kind of an exciting weekend for you guys, getting to see him a little bit, and you get to see him go to work.
Yeah, it's a fun weekend for us. It's a little unusual to go to the track, and not only do you get to watch the cup race, but you get to watch your son work. So it's a lot of fun.
Got to make you a pretty proud dad to know that he's working with some of the top race teams in the world right now.
Yeah, it's a little unusual. I will say that. When you can turn your TV on Sunday and watch your race and watch your boy, it's a different way. It's a different way to look at a NASCAR race now.
And he does shocks and gas man for who's he working with this weekend?
This weekend they have Michael McDowell in the 95. And he basically takes care of the chassis, and then on race day he is a gas man.
So is all of his know-how translating well to the shock package on your street stock?
Well, you know what? It's kind of funny because I used to teach him, and now he teaches me.
Yeah.
He gives me a lot of hints. I will say that. There's a lot of things we've changed thanks to him. So it has carried down to the street stock.
I mean, let's jump right into that topic right here. You're having you alluded to some of the different combinations, and sometimes it's just plain luck where the stars align that you have the season that you've got going right now. The 2 fight night wins with the street stocks, and then you've got the 4 points paying races with a weekly series at Outlaw Speedway. This is one of those seasons that you just don't want it to end.
Absolutely. Yeah, the fight night races were a draw, which we had we drew number 1 and number 3, which the wife drew those, and that really helped.
Sure.
And the other 4 shows were just stay out of trouble, run consistent, and get to the front.
What is the key for the street stock? We don't have a lot of folks on to talk about that. We talk about the modifieds and throttle control and getting your car to hook up. Conversely, with the crate sportsman, you need to keep your momentum up. Obviously, you need to keep the car straight so you're getting maximum power down to the ground so that you can get the drive off and you don't suffer off the corners. You guys have a little bit different combination because of the elements of the street stock itself. So what is so paramount in terms of making sure that you can navigate through traffic and get up to the front, as you said, staying out of trouble?
Well, this year for us, we went to build a brand new car, and there was a couple of rule changes. So the car that I was in the middle of building, I thought was going to be a little outdated. So we went ahead and cut the front end off and the rear end off and really went after the suspension just to help the corner speeds, which it's just turned the car right around. I mean, I go in so much further and I'm back on it so much quicker than ever before. So that's really what's helped this car.
In terms of the configuration, if you're willing to divulge any of that, is it more along the lines of what you see in an IMCA style modified? Is it more sort of a late model style mindset when you do the setup on that? Or did you just take what pre-existed with what you knew in the street stocks and just kind of fine-tune it a little bit more than maybe other people thought to?
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, with the suspension parts that we're running now, because you can run some aftermarket stuff on the front end.
Right.
The location of them. A lot of it is, it's not really the IMCA, not the IMCAs or the late models, because they can run the coilovers, but it's just about where you put everything on the front end.
So take me back through racing. I mean, your name has been in victory lanes a lot of different ways at different iterations of the racetrack down there in Dundee, between Dundee Raceway and Yates County Speedway and Black Rock Speedway. You've never really gotten far away from racing down there, and it's been sort of a tradition to make sure that car gets to victory lane one way or another. Yeah,
the kids, when they were 12 and 13, they decided they wanted to go back to the 4 cylinders. They were running karts, so that the next step for us was to go back to dirt. We were running a lot of asphalt for years, and so we got them some Mustangs, and then Jimmy Schuyler put me in one of his, at that time, one of them late models.
Yep.
Or super stocks, I think they were called. And we've been running Friday nights ever since then.
What was that class like? I mean, it wasn't a super stock. It wasn't a pro stock. It wasn't quite a late model, but it definitely wasn't a pure stock.
No, that was in all itself. It was a fun class because we had so many cars, but kind of an expensive class. There was a lot of there again. It was all suspension. The rear ends. They just kind of, as in anything that you do, it started out as the street stock, and then they let you have a little bit more and a little bit more and a little more, and before you knew it, we were running these full blown, super stocks, and there wasn't hardly anything left stock on the car.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a time when you had Dave Du Bois, if I remember right. He was in the class at that point. You had the Fultzes that were running in there. Rob Conklin was running. You were in there in the middle of the heyday when those cars were really, really popular down there. But there was really no place else for
involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of cars in there at the time. It was a lot of fun.
But you couldn't really run those anyplace else, could you? I couldn't commit, so I never really did. I don't know at the time what the Woodhall rules were, or Skyline, or Thunder Mountain, or any of the other tracks. So I basically could only commit myself to Friday nights right there, right?
Which was my job, and at that time. So I really don't know then.
What were some of your thoughts when that division went away? And at that point, there was a lot of turnover. We saw the trucks come and go. We saw the evolution of different types of street stocks. We saw the 360 late models come in. Then we saw the crate late models. started to grab a foothold in the area. Then the Crate Sportsman came in, and they really took to the track well. The track went from sprint cars to modifieds, or modifieds to sprint cars, then back to modifieds and to sportsmen, and then there was a lot of ebb and flow up to the point where even the Crate Sportsmen were the main class there. What were some of your thoughts when that class first went away?
Actually it didn't hurt my feelings. I mean, I like the full-bodied. I've always loved the full-bodied race car, but
right.
At that time we decided to go to the Crate Sportsman cars. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a move that we were going to do right off the. And Jim had other ideas, and so it didn't really affect us much because we were all excited about going to the Crate Sportsman cars. Right.
And how did that work out?
You know what? It didn't work out too well. I had some heat wins and I had some seconds and thirds in the features. I never did win one, come close a bunch of nights, but I really didn't give the time that you needed to on those cars because of both the boys were running the 4-cylinder class, and right. I dedicated all my time to them.
What?
And you really had to dedicate a lot more time to those Crate cars to make them roll and be smooth, and I just didn't do it.
So you're talking setup type stuff?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
What was the transition from the super stocks to the Sportsman? The first time you went around the track, habit is going to have you hitting particular points. Did the Sportsman even come close to having the same points or the same feel? Was there anything that would translate from one to the other?
No, they didn't, and it was a little different being able to see your front wheels up there, and it was a lot of fun. And those cars there, if you can run around wide open, then you're pretty close on your setup, which was a little unusual. They seemed a little underpowered compared to the super stocks.
What motor did you have in the super stock?
Pardon me?
What motor was in your super stock?
It was a 355, 358, somewhere in there. Just worked over. It just seemed like they were a little, they had more power than them Crates.
Sure.
The Crate motors are, they're what they are.
So then the experience with the Crate motor ran its course, and from there, did you go, if I'm remembering right, you went to the street stock next, correct?
Yeah. Then the boys, actually, CJ had graduated and he was leaving, and I decided to throw a street stock together. We have a cottage 10 minutes away on Seneca Lake, so it made it convenient. I could race a little bit of a car on Friday night, and we could still go to the cottage for Saturday and Sunday to make the family happy. And I just put one together, and I have a lot of enjoyment building chassis. I like that end of it. So the next thing you know, here I am, still 7-8 years later.
Right.
Building street stocks and trying to get up a little bit on everybody every year. So,
how hard is it to get up, in your words, on everybody else? You're building your own cars, which gives you a little bit of control because you're interpreting the rules, you're reading the rules, interpreting them, and applying it to your car without any other, so to say, input than some of these places that are just popping out chassis quick. How does that?
That's it. You have the Nitro chassis, and you have Morseman chassis, and all these guys are building chassis, and the Potter chassis, and they're all good cars in their way. And it's just that I've always enjoyed building mine, and I agree and disagree with a lot of points on them, and I like to try my stuff, like I on the front end, like I say, and on the rear end, and I kind of just have always enjoyed that end of it. And somebody will own this car eventually one day because I'm going to sell it, and I'll want to try something a little better that I think I can improve on.
Right. Is it tough? Is it tough to build one of these? I mean, are the parts still readily available? It would seem that there's been so many divisions of street stock in different iterations that it might be a challenge to build one, but at the same time they made so many, and you're allowed a little bit of that aftermarket stuff. Maybe it's not so hard.
Well, anymore on our street stocks, the front clip basically and the lower control arms are about what's left stock.
Yeah.
And we can pretty much some of the front end steering spots and some of the suspension is still stock. Other than that, most of it's all aftermarket now.
Yeah.
So it's your points where you set the car up, where you set your control arms, where you set your spindles, where shocks and so on. That's where it all comes into play.
what's it like still now racing with the guys like Jared Hill and you talked about Jim too. Jim Schuyler's name's one that comes up pretty much anytime you have a conversation about full-fendered cars down there at Black Rock or Outlaw or whatever you call it. His name comes up repeatedly.
Well, it's funny you bring it up. We had a conversation, and he had approached me. He was having a little hard time, Jim was, earlier in the season, and him and Quinn couldn't get a handle on it. And he had asked me about springs and shocks, and I had thought, geez, here's a man that's spent, I would bet you say 30 or 40 years at this track, and it was neat that he was wondering. And we just we talked about some numbers and springs and shocks and so on and so forth, but Jared, he gets in that car and makes it. Jared can make any car go, And then the 187's fast, and now Quinn's fast in the 57, and you have the 3D and Grill and the CJ1. So there's a bunch of cars down there that are fast, and everybody has their good night. Is it
harder to win now with the street stock and the field that you're up against versus the super stocks from? Now it's close to 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
I wish we had more cars in the class. It's fun when, at the end of the year, when we have the 100, because then you get to race against a lot of cars that are, from other tracks.
Right.
The super stocks back then were a fun class, and it was a much harder class. Everybody was on their game then. But the street stocks now, we could be to a super stock in another year with the transmissions we're running and motors and rear ends and so forth. But it's just, I don't know. I enjoy the class. It's a lot of fun. It's a full-bodied car. I always have.
Why is that so much more comfortable than anything else?
I'm not sure. I loved, for a while I ran the NASCAR Asphalt Modified. I ran them for about 7 or 8 years down to the old Shangri-La Motor Speedway, and that was probably one of my funnest times ever, racing down there on the asphalt with the Modified. But that division really, you could see it didn't have a very bright future, and at that time, a lot of my sponsors were enjoying the dirt, and the kids wanted to go back to the dirt, so that was the path we chose. But I've always liked a full-bodied car.
The time when you were running the super stocks down there, the pro stocks with dirt car, they had their own tour, and Jip Ortez was doing great things in the zero car, and Pete Stefanski was winning everything under the sun with his. Did you ever think of trying to transition into that route? You didn't really have a home track to run those cars at, and what you were running in terms of the super stocks, it didn't really translate line for line to give you the opportunity of doing that. Did you ever give that any consideration?
I didn't. Back then when Jim owned the car, basically my night was Friday night, like I said, and that's where we concentrated on. We would work. I think he was running the truck
right
at the same time. He might have ran that for a couple of years, but to keep both those cars going at that one time was quite a bit. And so Friday night, once we were done with Friday night, that was good enough for us. At least it was for me.
Do you miss the ability to do the 2-car operation?
I did. I helped Gene Ballmer here the last couple of years. I built him a new car, and it's just a lot of work. It's we anywhere from 20 to 30 hours a week on one car.
Oh,
and
man.
when you got 2 cars out of the same garage, it's a lot of work. It really is. And you got your checklist weekly, and then you got your repairs, and then you have your regular maintenance, and it can be a little overwhelming. So
I wouldn't have guessed that you had that much maintenance on one of those. That's a surprising number to me. Is everybody putting that kind of time in on a street stock, the 20 to 30 hours? Is everybody investing that much time?
I'm not sure if they are. I mean, I have a weekly checklist that you start from front to back with, a nut and bolt list, a WD-40 list, a grease list, and then your tire preparation, and then, oil changes, rear end changes, transmission changes, the fluids. It's, and then when you're doing 2 cars, there's a lot of work there.
Wow. That's
for a street stock.
Yeah, that's a lot more than I was expecting. I mean, I guess it's not too surprising, but still, I mean, it makes the checklist makes sense. The nut and bolt, the grease list, the WD-40, all that stuff as you went through that all makes sense, because if that's the difference right there between running up front and running middle of the pack, because it's that thing that you didn't grease that's going to lock up 15 laps from the end, and you're going to be sitting on the sidelines. It's going to lock up, it's going to break. But the rest of the maintenance, it's a little surprising. I can't imagine.
The track condition, we've been finding, upper ball joints being bent, lower ball joints being bent, a shock being bent. It's just that kind of maintenance that, you have to keep an eye on. And you don't. If you're going to lose, you don't want it to be by anything mechanically on the car. If you can,
right.
If you run on a Friday night and son of a gun, you made a mistake and the guy got by you and you finished second, well, then you got to go home and figure out what you did wrong. But you don't want to ever lose the race with a mechanical problem on the car, and that's what you try to avoid.
Well, let's go to that topic of the track. Tyler Seary takes over. It's his first year there as an owner and promoter. Things started off real strong. And as you said, maybe not as many cars in the pits as you would have hoped for your division. A couple challenges with the track, but then a couple weeks ago, things started looking like they were getting better and they were improving. Again, it would strike me, if based off the conversation that we started with the shock program, it was all about getting the car to want to go through the corners without bouncing and skipping all over the place. So take me through your experience of 2016 and where things started and how things evolved.
Well, it's like you said, the first 4 weeks were really nice, and I can remember Tyler coming over to us and telling us, you guys are going to love the track tonight. The surface is going to be beautiful. You're going to have a lot of bite, which it did, and we were like, this is what we want. This is the right track. And then they've had some gremlins. It's so tough when the track gets that much bite, and then the modifieds or the sprint cars, we seem to be having these same ruts going into 3 and going into 1, which is when everybody turns the car and the car gets its forward bite.
Right.
And it's look at those guys. Robbie Conklin's doing everything I'm sure he can do, and so isn't Tyler. And it's an issue of clay. It's an issue of almost to the point where it wouldn't hurt us if we would have had a rain out just to let the track settle up a little bit longer. But he's had, great Friday nights. We haven't had a rain out. So, he's been fighting it on both ends, and now I believe he's lost some cars. I know he's lost some street stock. Some of the guys are just, their cars themselves are getting beat up, but those guys are doing the best they can, and that's what I do. I just try to search out the smoothest spot on the track and run there.
So would you prefer, being with all the talk that we had about setup and with grip and your suspension talk, it strikes me that you're more of a driver type than a charger type at this stage of the game. So do you like it when the track has gobs of grip and you can just run it wide open, or would you rather have it a little bit slicker and it's in the hands of a driver?
You know what? Either way makes me happy. I enjoy them both, and if you have a lot of bite that night, then it seems like you appear to be a lot more aggressive. And if it's a little slicker track, then you got to, it's almost the egg under the gas pedal. You got to really be easy. It's the nights where you have all the ruts and even the straightaways are really bad. Those are the nights when, if you're starting to mid-pack or 10th or 12th or 15th to work your way up, you almost can't race the cars. You have to just race the track. And that makes it a little tough, because if you get up towards the front, the top 3-4 guys, we're all basically running the track, and it really makes it a hard decision to try to pass those guys, whether it be on the bottom or on the top, because you want to be where the smoothness is, and so aren't they. So,
right.
That's the only issue with that. Another, a night when it's got a lot of bite, it is fun because you can run wherever you want, So those are the fun nights.
Well, I would guess the fun nights end in victory lane too most times, right?
Pardon me?
The fun nights end in victory lane most times, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully.
Done a little bit.
Got a big one.
Go ahead.
I was going to say we got a big one this Friday night. I see that they're not going to run heats, so we're running features only. So we will try to get an idea for hot laps and then just keep an eye on the track, and that'll make our decisions on what we do for the car.
What do you think of that?
As far as no heats?
Well, yeah. I mean, you've got to do more track monitoring for your feature only, and without the heat, you don't have nearly as much margin for error to come back and correct it. You've got to nail that setup, and you've got to nail it on your first shot. Otherwise, you're going to be out there for a little while, and you're going to be fighting the car.
Yeah, that's it's a tough night. I mean, you're going to be pretty close. There's a little change from the, you may have to loosen it or tighten up your car depending on the track itself from the heat to the feature. But if we're running second or we're running third and we're running before the modifieds, and you got to figure the track's going to be a little smoother, so then you can, set your car up for that. And you're right, it's a one-time deal. Let's hope you set it up pretty close, but you can, if it's too tight, then you can make the adjustment and drive the track. If it's too loose, then slow your entry. You're going to have to work with what you got. So that does make it interesting.
This time of year, I've heard a lot of the drivers that are kind of frustrated with the situation down there at Outlaw. But at the same time, it seems every year this time of year we end up with a stretch of hot weather where we don't get doused with a lot of rain. The tracks tend to dry out a little bit, and we see drivers sort of running out of money. The cars break. They can't make the repairs. They get burned out on it. Family commitments crop up. I mean, we're eyeing back to school here in about a month. How much of the divisional fall off is just typical weekly racing fall off, and guys who are vocally saying we're not coming back? Are they saying track conditions and then they're using that as their out so that they can park the car because they can't fix it? Or is there just not been? Is there more opportunity for opinion being shared due to social media, or people just enduring a typical season?
It's really tough to say. There's a lot of guys that are a little upset with the track, and they don't want to come back until there's improvements. And then I'm sure there's guys that, we're 11 or 12 weeks into the season now, and it may be a financial thing. If they broke 4 or 5 times, it can go both ways, I believe. Right. It's just it's a shame that it has to be that way. And like I said, every division has had a week off, and the street stocks haven't. The mods have been off, the crates have been off, the IMCA cars have been off, even the 4-cylinders, but the street stocks have not been off.
Right.
And last weekend when we had the Friday night show and then we had the Saturday night show, because of accidents on Friday night, I'm sure he lost 3 or 4 cars that couldn't return, just to, the turnaround of not getting them done. And then I had a prior commitment, so there was no way I could make that show.
Sure.
So yeah, you're right. It's unfortunate this time of year. Right? And then on the other hand, this is if you have any chance of trying to win a championship, or if you're somewhat close, it's also the time of year where you want to buckle down and now you're trying to finish off the season and push hard.
Close it out. It's all about closing it out. You're talking about the end of the season, and what else do we have on the calendar for you this year? Obviously, your focus is Outlaw. You want to try and wrap things up as strong as possible there. You've got the big 100-lapper at the end of the year, which I'm sure you're going to make that part of your schedule. Do you plan on doing any traveling or anything as we get to the close of 2016?
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll finish Outlaw, and then we'd like to travel because he's off from the from the middle of September to the end of October. So you're off there 3 or 4 weeks, and that gives you a chance to maybe run 5 Mile or Thunder Mountain or these other tracks. And then I like to have about a week or 10 days to get ready for the 100-lapper at Outlaw, and then he's actually got a couple of them this year. I think he's got one in September and then one in October. And that race, I've been to the top 3 or the top 4 with 10 or 15 to go, and something mechanically is let go on the car, and I would really like to win that race.
Is this your year?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I've had a lot of years where we've won 4 or 5 features, and then the wheels fall off right at the end, you know.
Right.
So you just can't tell. That's why I say you do everything you can mechanically to check the entire car, and then hope everything rolls for you. You go to the racetrack, you run your race. I have to start in the back, which is fine, and I will let those guys race hard, and then when you can, I will try to take advantage of mistakes, and then it's, you know, if the track's nice, then you can run to the top and go for it, or run to the bottom and go for it. It's a buckle down time of year.
It's all about limiting your variables, right?
That's it. And I've always said that I've never chased the points. I've always just chased the wins. And look at it. If you're winning races, the points will take care of themselves. If you're wrecking or crashing or braking, you know, then the points will. They're going to always be what they're going to be, and they can drive you crazy. Just You know, if you want to show up, and you got to go for the trophy, go for the win. And if you got beat, you got to go home and do your homework and see where you can make improvements. You know, and come on back. That's what we've been doing. That's why we all race.
Well, Chuck, man, I appreciate the conversation. I want to get you out of here so that you can go spend some time with your family. Appreciate you coming on the show. Before we let you go, we always try and give our guests an opportunity to tell us about the folks that help get the car to the track week in and week out. If you wanted to make any mentions of anybody, by all means, feel free.
Yeah, Larry Kennison from Precision. He helps me immensely, and I get a lot of help from a Snell Metal Fab out of Towanda, and I got a couple of constructions. I got Mike McDonald, and I have Weiss Construction, and then Gene Balmer also helps me. You know, and then the family, the wife. You get the support from the wife, and then my 2 boys, and the guys that work on the car. Everybody just, you know, they pitch in. It's a lot of time, a lot of hours, a lot of dedication for a Friday night show, you know.
Well, Chuck, I appreciate you coming on tonight, making time for us. Have a great time at Watkins Glen this weekend.
Really?
And, you know, enjoy the time with family, and definitely keep us posted as the season goes on. I'd love to hear from you again when you get into a little bit of the opportunity to travel, and hopefully we'll be talking to you again after that 100-lapper in the fall.
That would be. I would love to do this again. I can tell you that.
All right. Well,
okay.
I'm looking forward to it. Good luck the rest of the season. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you much.
Thanks, Chuck. We'll see you later.
Bye.
There goes Chuck Winslow, winner of 6 street stock features at Outlaw, and looking to pick up a very important to him win in the Empire 100 coming up later on this year. That is going to do it for this edition of the 31st Lap. We're wrapping up here. We should be back here next week. Get out there, support your local racetracks. We'll see everybody right back here again next Thursday. Thanks a lot.